Okay, let's open up with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for the beautiful weather outside, and I especially thank you for the healing that has taken place with both Debbie and Bruce, because he takes everything to extreme, I guess I should say, but you know him better than I do. And I know that you're with both of them, and just pray that the news from the doctor with the x-ray, that it's positive and it's good, and that they can start getting back to a more normal life. But Heavenly Father, just be with us. Our class has literally, I think, been cut in half. But that's okay. It doesn't matter if there's only one person sitting here. Lord, we know your Holy Spirit is here and is working among us and will show us what you want us to learn and how to use it in our lives today. Heavenly Father, I ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
There may only be 4 of us, but we're going to try harder. If we were number 2, try harder to be number 1.
Well,
We have a friend. This is her son, Thomas. She has discovered she was having some issues. Went to the doctors. She's younger than I am. Not a whole lot, but younger than I am. She has a form of Alzheimer's that will eventually make her aphasic.
What's the basic? Not
Can't
able to
talk.
Oh,
And we were out to dinner with them a couple of months ago, and I was sitting next to her, and we were, and Tim, her husband, said, yeah, that it's off and on, but it's getting more off now.
well, they forget. With Alzheimer's is under the umbrella of dementia. And there is a difference. Don't ask me what it is. I can't explain
You
it.
know what, he said dementia, he didn't say Alzheimer's.
But
isn't that what Bruce Willis has?
Remember,
He
he
lost his ability.
I mean, what happens is they forget, and it can get as bad as to where they forget how to breathe, and then they die. I
they
mean,
said there is no cure.
no, there isn't. There isn't. In the very beginning, they can give you something that'll slow it down, but it's kind of like Parkinson's. I mean, Parkinson's can't be cured either, but you can have medication that can slow the process down so that you can live longer. But I had a neighbor that had Alzheimer's, and it was sad. It was sad to watch her very quickly. I was amazed in a year's time how far down she went, to where she ended up in Lorien, Bel Air. Because I
But
mean,
if they get violent and more and they don't do
well, she died. I mean, she just.
But I mean, some of them get very agitated and will hit out at you and so forth. And as soon as that happens at Lorien, they release them. They don't.
Yeah, I have. Well, it's sad. It's sad. But anyway.
That's why I asked, what did they do in biblical times with people like that?
Well, they a lot of times they, will look like they did to people with leprosy.
Yeah, they put them out in those camps.
That was,
Well, not even camps. They went into
Well,
caves or wherever they could go. They just
yeah.
couldn't be in town with their families or any of that. And I just had a story that I read. It was a murder mystery story, and it just so happened that on the island of Manhattan, because this book series is written about a DA in New York City, and there's a place just off of the island of Manhattan. It was another island where they had a building where they would send people back in the 1800s that had leprosy. And but sometimes, I mean, people that have oddball kinds of things going on with them that people don't understand, didn't understand. They all grouped them together, and sent them off somewhere.
Leopard colonies.
Well, yeah. I mean, but what fact that I found out that I found interesting was that leprosy's not contagious.
That's right.
It is not?
It is not contagious.
Oh, I thought it
So how
was.
did it,
So, I mean, they're alienating these people, but yet,
It's a death sentence.
yes.
Mildly.
Oh, yeah. But yet, well, and there are places today, because leprosy's still out there,
Probably in Africa. mainly.
but over time, I guess they found more out about it. But I never knew that. I always thought that's why they,
Yeah, because.
Put people out.
In the
but it's not even, so I'm like, okay. It's interesting what I learned reading murder mystery books. I'm telling you.
and I spent the whole week in Verdun, France, from February the 18th, 1916, the First World War. I've been doing that all week, and I did learn something about cemeteries and the bounds between burying a body at the resurrection compared to cremation. But during the wars, cemeteries were bombed. And the skeletons, remains that could have been in the ground up to 50 years, were obliterated. And the question, which I thought was dumb, could Jesus still raise the dead? You know how I wanted to really write a comment, if he made the earth, he's gonna raise the dead. Our bodies are no use to us.
Well, and besides, we get a new body. That doesn't mean we have our bones. Our bones are in the grave. We're getting a new body. Oh my gosh, people, come on.
Yeah,
But
I
I
want to
was
have a new body.
surprised how in 1916 they were, the relation to that. That question doesn't seem to ever go away. And they
I don't know.
kept saying dust to dust, And I thought, 1960, here's a documentary wondering if Jesus can.
Well, that question is still live and active
Today.
Oh, yeah.
I have a grandson who questioned me. He said it's an important question. He wanted to know about cremation. He knew his pap had been cremated. And he says, so when I get old and die, if pap is just ashes, how will I know him when I get to heaven?
Well, all you need to do is tell him because Pap has a new body.
That's what I said.
And the bottom line is we think we're going to recognize our loved ones when we get there. We have no clue.
That's right.
We don't know. It's not written anywhere in Scripture that when you get up to heaven, you're going to see your mother and father who died before you.
Right.
No.
I want to.
We all hope we're going to.
Right.
But we don't know. But
it's like a question, it just doesn't seem to.
well, there's no answer in Scripture,
I
so
was like, what, Germans just bombed this whole city off of the planet, including the church, and you can see the craters in the cemetery. Just bombed it. And then they're wondering, how was Jesus going to erect the souls that were in that cemetery?
Oh, for goodness sake.
And it's they rebuilt the church there as a monument. But I thought, that's 1916. We don't seem to learn anything as a society.
well, yeah, but it's a question that
When you read this thing that we're reading now, there's
Right.
not been a lot of changes.
no. Okay, let's get going.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm going to handle chapter 10 different than what we've been doing. Because I'm not reading all those names.
Read them.
But the first question, okay, from what county or region did your family originate? Do any of you know?
Yeah, I do. England, both sides. I'm the third and last generation here in the States.
I'm German.
No, I'm German, 100%.
Irish.
Very good.
I'm German, English, and Italian.
Oh, no, I'm 100% German.
great-great-grandfather came from London. His name was James. He was a policeman. His brother was killed and murdered on the United States' Thanksgiving Day. But James, I can't find out where he's buried, turned out to be on DC's Secret Service.
We haven't gotten across the pond yet.
Your keys are on the floor, I don't want you to lose.
Oh, I heard them fall. Irish?
Thank you.
I'm adopted, but I was told my father was Irish and my mother was French. Now, the couple that adopted me, Mom was Scot-Irish and Dad was French-German. So we used to tell my brother, of course he was 21 years older, but we called him a mongrel because he was such a...
Like a Heinz 57.
Well, that's what my father-in-law used to always say. He was Heinz 57 variety. He had some Cherokee Indian, probably English. I mean, yeah. But my parents, both my parents' families are German all the way.
Wow, see,
Yeah.
my mother's side, my father's side, all came from England.
And you know, my daughter did.
Blondie.
My daughter had her DNA, thing done. And so why'd you do that? You know that you're at least 50% German, And she did, and it proved it. It proved it. She's actually more than 50%. I said, that's your grandfather. It's Heinz 57. Part of him was German too. But yeah. So, but anyway, it says, what customs and traditions do your family still celebrate? Really?
Well, we had a very small family.
Oh.
My sister and I are the last two for our generation.
My father was raised by multiple people because his parents were gone by the time he was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so my mother, she was from Loudoun County, Bluemont in Virginia. So all their traditions had nothing to do with Scot-Irish. It had to do with, the ham was at one end of the table every meal. And then they would have steak for breakfast. And, at Christmas and Thanksgiving, they always had the ham at one end and the turkey at the other. But she made Southern dishes. It had nothing to do with it, So that's all we had.
I think that's the biggest tradition that my family had was my grandmother, of course, lived with us forever. And she cooked because my parents, after they split up, my mom went to work. And so my grandmother cooked anyway. She was a wonderful cook and baker. And I always say she taught me everything. But she always cooked what I would consider German dishes. I mean, yes, she also had like the spaghetti and meat, spaghetti and things like that. But we all also had very German dishes. And of course, Germans don't eat a lot of spices. Did yours? No. I mean, I remembered, my kids love my dressing. And because I put nothing in it but bread, eggs, milk, and parsley. There's no extra.
A lot of parsley.
Yes, and they like it because it's plain, and they grew up with that. And so, I mean, I always am responsible whenever we're going to have turkey, which we will the Friday after Thanksgiving. I will have the turkey and dress it and bring it over, and we'll bake it at my daughter's. But that's the only reason that, I mean, I know that Christmas was very important in my house. I mean, we were probably lower middle class, but we would always, like kids, make a list you know? And my mother did her best to make sure we got everything on our list. And we might not have a big closet full of clothes or whatever, but we always had nice clothes, good clothes, because to her, quality was better than quantity. So, I mean, those are the things that I remember about, and I would consider them traditions. I mean, you know, the Christmas tree, oh my word, my mom and her Christmas tree, every year it would be different.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one year it would have all blue lights on it. One year it might have all red lights on it, or white lights, or multiple colors. And one year she comes home.
One year they blink and one year they don't blink.
No, we never had blinkers.
We had blinkers.
We didn't have blinkers. But, well, in fact, I remember growing up, we had the big bulbs, you know what I mean?
Yes.
We didn't have the little twinkle.
Bubble
We always
lights.
had the
Yeah.
big-
I have a
the bigger
bubble light.
ones. That's all was out there.
Yeah, but she was, I mean, you never knew what. She comes home from work and she's all excited because a lady gave her this magazine to look at. It was all about Christmas stuff. And she found this recipe for how to make snow that you can put on the Christmas tree. Oh my word. Irish snowflakes. And you add water to it and it makes like almost like a glue, but it's, you know, and you put it on the branches of the tree. Well, our Christmas, it was beautiful when it was done, but it was a pain in the butt. I mean, but my mom, she would come up with all these until she went into the nursing home. My mom, now her trees got smaller, as you know. I mean, she had, by the time, before she was in the nursing home, she just had a tree about, you know, it would sit on a table. But it was always decorated and it was never the same way.
That's cool.
That's
Well,
just
you
the
know,
way she was.
We would celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it was always wonderful, but nothing like because we were from Ireland, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Bill's family definitely was traditional Pennsylvania Dutch food.
Uh-huh.
And as you know, down here in Maryland, sauerkraut is with
Oh,
turkey.
Yes.
yuck.
Dad always made sauerkraut with a turkey.
So
I
I,
had to have sauerkraut at a lot of meals. It wasn't
Yeah.
just
Uh-huh.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Sauerkraut.
It
And my grandmother made her own sauerkraut.
was mine.
you know, Bill's.
Yes.
My
Bill's
grandmother made
was.
her.
In fact, I have the crock. I have the crock that she made it in. It's 4-gallon crock, I think. It sits in the corner of my living room with other stuff around it. Yeah, I have several of her crocks. Smaller, a lot smaller than that, but yeah.
Well, I said to her, this was the first Thanksgiving, we went up to Philadelphia, and I said, Bill loves sauerkraut, can we have sauerkraut on it? You thought I said the Pope had children,
Oh, no.
because it was Pennsylvania. You don't have, that's only with bratwurst, hot dogs, you know, and she would not put it on the table. And I thought when I said, Bill would love it, you know, because she'd do anything for Bill. Yeah. So that really, and then she'd make a dandelion salad.
What?
Oh, my grandmother. We used to go over to the playground and dig up.
Out of the ground?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you get you go out and dig them. Well, they were like greens. You cut them up. I mean, you cleaned them, and yeah. Actually, you're saying that, but it was very good.
But see, my mother would have a colorful Thanksgiving. You know, the cranberry, you know, the different colors, green beans.
Yeah, my aunt was very big
But guess
on a
what?
colorful dinner.
I looked at her table and it was bland looking. Everything was like neutral colors. It was all Pennsylvania Dutch. And his grandmother made potato stuffing, which she never put any milk in it with the potatoes. She would like fry onions and breadcrumbs and season it that way with some celery, and then put, you know, make the potatoes and that.
How was it?
It was really good, but there was absolutely no milk in it, which was weird to me. And plenty of butter, not oleo, butter, you know. couple sticks in there. I mean,
Yeah,
it
my
was
family
delicious.
always
And
cooked
then
with
she'd
real
bake
butter.
it
My mother
after
would
she
put
got
butter
all
and
of it.
gravy.
And
Yeah,
it
well, I
was-
always have to make an extra
And if I saw
casserole
her
of
do
dressing.
that, I wouldn't eat it.
Mhm.
And my mother was.
We stuff the turkey,
And
and
I
then,
have to do extra mashed potatoes.
well, we generally have two different kinds of potatoes.
Yeah.
Because we have a sweet potato dish that we have to make, and also mashed potatoes. And sometimes my daughter even has to make what she calls cheesy potatoes, which are made in a crock pot, and they're out of this world. But I think we're having macaroni and cheese with my Sunday Thanksgiving dinner with my whole family. I just found out my one granddaughter I thought wasn't going to be there is going to be there. So my whole family will be together.
That's cool.
And my mother
Yeah.
used to always bake the stuffing inside the bird, which
We-
later you found out was dangerous.
Yeah, I still do though.
That's what they
And
always
I
did,
loved
Dad.
it because when it kind of
Salty
solidified,
inside.
you could cut it. I loved the stuffing when it got
We
cold
used to-
and it was inside.
I still put it in.
Loaves of bread and toast them.
I still do it.
Put the bread in.
And we haven't died from it yet.
Make our own toast.
My mother,
My
later
mom.
in years, did stovetop, so I continued the tradition of stovetop stuffing. And one Thanksgiving, my grandson went, oh, and we're thankful for Grandma's wonderful dressing. I didn't want to tell him it was stovetop, but he thought it was delicious. So
Dad would get stovetop, but he always doctored it up.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, yeah. Okay, we need to get this lesson done.
Yeah.
So we can get to the real lesson, which is in chapter 11.
Chapter 11.
Okay, under context, which, okay, it says, down in the bottom paragraph I'll read, as we saw in the last study, modern science has confirmed that all nations and races today had their origins in three distinct people groups, descendants of the sons of Noah. Anthropologists and linguists have even surmised that there was originally one common ancestor. Even evolutionists not acknowledge the nations and large people groups appeared over a short period of time rather than the billions of years that they use as their safety net for all other ridiculous assertions. Okay, now, why is chapter 10 in the Bible?
Who knows?
Well, there's a reason for it.
Oh, because the lineage of Shem, you start with Noah, Shem, and then it goes to Jesus Christ. And
Well, it actually starts with Adam and Eve, but
Yes.
well, that's true. But we have three sons, and they all had children.
Right.
And some of them are, yes, lots of them, you're right. And lots of them, I mean, I thought it was interesting to just kind of look at them. I mean, like, the descendants of Japheth, they headed north and west, and that's where I figure my people come.
Yeah.
But you know, they talk about the Greeks, and Javan, who is the son of Japheth, or maybe, yeah.
The sons of Noah was the oldest of Japheth. So they were the sons of.
Well, yeah, the sons of Javan, which he's actually Javan is a son of Japheth, but then, but anyway, he's considered the father of the Greeks, which kind of lets you know where they settled. And Mishhesh, who is also another son of him. It's possible that the people of Russia
Great, yeah, I read that.
are descended from him, and then if we look at Ham, now we realize that Ham, he had the curse on him, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and his sons headed south, and they settled basically in Egypt and Africa. And if we look at the different names, Cush, probably father of Arabia, Mishram, father of Egypt, Put, father of Libya, and Canaan, father of the Canaanites. And we know about the Canaanites.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they are a very big part of the Israelites' early history.
It looks like most of the enemies came from Ham's descendants.
Well, I think
And it looks like it's still going on.
I agree. If we look over on page 100, Babel is Babylon, and Erech, I guess, I don't know. He's a modern.
Right there.
His is the modern nation of Iraq.
I can't figure out where you are. Oh,
I'm on page 100,
yeah.
and
Okay.
the land of Shinar was probably Mesopotamia, and it appears that the four kingdoms of Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh were united together under one strong leader. And then, of course, there's Assyria. We've heard of Assyria. This was Israel's primary enemy from the east. We've heard about Assyria many times in our studies.
Oh, yeah.
Nineveh, we know because of Jonah, right? And the Philistines.
Syria, Philistines.
Nineveh was the city to which Jonah would one day travel. And then if you look at Shem, they're considered the Middle East, which doesn't surprise anybody probably because, you would think he would settle, and the people there would be the Israelites and all, in that area. Shem is the father of all races that are named after him, which are called the Semitic people. And of course, this includes Israel. And if you look down at the bottom of that area, Eber is an ancestor of Abraham. And Mesha is known as its ancient name for Mecca. So,
Isn't Mecca the place, the holy city for the Muslims?
Where that black box is, or black, that always confuses me. They go there every year.
Well, they're supposed to go, I think, once in their life.
the Israelites were supposed to go to Jerusalem so many times, and they were always supposed to go during special festivals. And that's, why Joseph and Mary were traveling to Bethlehem. They had to go to their place of whatever, because they were actually with them. They were counting the people.
Census.
Yeah, and so Joseph needed to go to Bethlehem, so Mary climbed on the donkey and went with him, so to speak. Okay, I'm not doing question number 1. I'm doing question number 2.
I was gonna say, that's crazy. How would we know?
Well, I don't know, like, I figured because we were European, that it would be how do you say it,
Jasper.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
Well, I didn't answer it because I actually really looked at the map and everything, and it doesn't. I figured that because of Japheth going north and west, he would have been going over probably towards Germany and those That's why I said I probably, if I took it all the way back, if we got, we're not across the pond yet. I have a cousin who's working on ours, and we're still in the United States. She hasn't gotten us over to Germany yet. But soon, she's she is so good at it. I mean, she's been doing it for countless years. She's an RN, but she's retired now, and she spends a lot of time on the computer checking stuff out. But question number 2, anyway. What do the names found in Genesis 10 tell you about how mankind has spread out after the flood?
Well, Ham, it was Canaan, Egypt, and Africa. Shem was the Middle East, and Japheth, whatever, Europe and Asia Minor.
Okay. Something that I added to it was the number of nations that came out from each one of them. Japheth had 14 nations, Ham 30, Shem 26. And if you add them all together, it's 70, which means completeness.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get her amount. Japheth was how many?
14,
14.
Ham 30,
30.
Shem 26. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, but what got me was Ham had the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's the most destructive.
Right.
Well, doesn't that make sense? I mean, when you, well, here we go. In what ways does this chapter foreshadow events to come in the Bible?
Well, Joshua had to fight when they went to the Promised Land. The Philistines, Canaan, the Amorites, and the Promised Land. And God said, annihilate them, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Well, they did most of them, but they had some that they didn't.
And that's why we're screwed up today.
Exactly.
Well, and true. I mean, you got, another son, Castle Heights, from which the Philistines came. Who finally took care of them? We studied this. Who finally took care of the Philistines? With a slingshot.
King David.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
The giant.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was it. That was the way they did things. They would put one man against another. Well, the Philistines thought they were going to be smart and put this giant out there. And then this young kid comes along with his slingshot. And Shem,
I was going to say, Egypt at times was an enemy, but they were a friend at times, like with Jacob.
Oh, and
He
they
ended
made
up
that.
bringing his whole family due to Joseph, and how that played out.
well, and they were in bondage to Egypt. Remember, Moses took them out of it. I'm warm. For a change, it's warm in here.
Yeah.
My allergies don't like me being overheated.
When the dust from the heat vents come on, that.
I have to have my heat vents. I have to have them cleaned.
I vacuum mine out. I do it at least once a year.
How do you do that?
I just take my little hose and I go down in there as far as it will go.
No, years ago they had somebody come and you could sign up, and I think it cost like $100 or something. It's been many years ago. And I didn't do it.
Big box stores have to have it done.
Yeah, I keep my vents cleaned and all that, but. Okay. Shem's son, and I think it's Shola, who is father of Eber, is, I already said this, is the ancestor to Abraham. And we know that Babylon, we're going to find out about the Tower of Babel. And then, of course, Nineveh Jonah. Those are things that are going to happen, but if you really think about it, I mean, especially with Ham, with all the different people that the Israelites battled, I mean, they're there. But question 4 is asking, how many of the nations and peoples mentioned in this passage became enemies of Israel? Well, we've already named them, haven't we?
Yeah, but you know, I just wrote down the surrounding nations that surrounded Israel, because sooner or later, at different points of time, that nation would attack, or they were having a problem with them. So, it's all in a little big circle. What
It's
was,
probably true.
Babylon that's Iraq now,
Mm-hmm.
see, and then Assyria, that's all in that area, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I didn't realize until it came out in the news how small Israel is in comparison to some of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really small.
Yeah, it's not a very big country.
No, they have 9 million people, but it's still small.
Small.
When I used to be in IA and I went to social studies class, like they were 6th graders, and they were studying the Middle East, and the kids had to do, they had Israel, it was one color, and then all the Arab countries that were Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, they never had a chance. I mean, it was just,
Yeah,
to see it on the
what I
map.
thought.
I mean, way over in Africa, you know, the middle, all around Jordan, all of them. I went, Muslim versus Israel.
Christianity.
Yeah, well,
There's lots of Muslims in England now.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
boy, I'm telling you, I've been watching the protest in London, and it's been amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been no guns. Nobody really basically beat up or hurt. They're just marching and they're beating drums. But it's not like our protests, you know.
But didn't they start it? I mean, the Muslims are doing a lot of protesting, but they were the ones that started it, weren't
Yeah.
they? They
Why are they
first.
protesting?
Palestine people
Oh.
are in England are protesting what Israel is doing to Gaza. But they're not admitting what the Hamas did to the Israelites. That seems to, all the anger is being thrown against Israel going in and demolishing Gaza. And my inner thought is, that land was Israel's anyway. God gave them that land. And God told them to destroy them. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that's what they're thinking now.
Mm-hmm. I know that the House of Representatives doesn't,
Get all their behinds.
well,
They
there was something said
censored
to,
one girl
mm-hmm.
last night. Because she said that Palestine should kill all of Israel. She said something like that.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah,
So they
Yeah.
censored her,
yeah, I heard that this morning. Wonderful.
you know, and I thought, oh,
On her social media account.
yeah.
I'm not even going anywhere there.
Yeah,
Okay, what principle does this suggest concerning God's people in the world today? Think of the countries that are around Israel. Iraq, Iran,
right.
Afghanistan,
Egypt.
Egypt,
Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Well,
and, you know, so all the all the old enemies are still here, aren't they?
Yeah, they just got to change the name.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And these people know their history. History is by word of mouth, generation,
Mhm.
generation. So it's not a new thing. It's just, you know, it's not.
Okay, getting into exploring the meaning It says, the line of Shem was the line of the promised deliverer who would bring salvation to the whole world. And I highlighted, and it's just a section of it says, only one chosen people descended through Shem alone, down through Abraham and David, and culminating in the person of Jesus Christ. The enemies of God's people, however, are descended through all 3 sons of Noah. I thought that was interesting. I underlined that. And the next section is mankind does not evolve. We all descended from Noah. And then God is always at work fulfilling his promises. And if you turn the page, you'll see at the top it says, God promised Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden that he would send a deliverer to release mankind from the curse of sin and death. From that moment on, he began to unfold his plan for man's salvation, even when he was forced by man's sinfulness to destroy the earth. He still preserved a remnant. Remember,
I lived with that.
when we talked, especially when we studied the minor prophets, remnant was very important all through all of, and even the major prophets that we've, like Jeremiah and I mean, a remnant is always there. And so that was important. So the remnant started with Noah's family, Noah and his family. And I didn't do all these questions either. I didn't do 6. When they start asking for your personal issues or whatever, I'm not going to, I'm not going to do them. So, question 5. What have you been taught regarding the history of the human race?
When they keep mentioning the 3 groups, we were taught in school that there are 3 races, Caucasian, Negroid, and Mongol. I don't know if they call it Mongolian or.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's black, Asian, and white. But he doesn't mention any of that in here.
No, because he's going by Noah's sons.
Right,
He's not giving them any.
right, but that's the way the world is,
That's the way we see it now.
yeah,
But back then they didn't.
right.
Okay.
I put God as the Big George of the human race. It started with Adam and Eve, then it went to Noah on the ark, then to Noah's 3 sons.
Yeah. I mean, basically, that's what happened. But I remember back in school when, and I can remember back that far. I mean, in science class, I mean, we were taught evolution.
Yeah.
Now, do they teach it today? I don't know. You've been teachers before, since.
Well,
Did you teach evolution?
Not in 2nd and 3rd grade.
no.
I guess not. Well, we didn't get it, I don't think we got it till like junior high.
Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing the poster, on the wall.
Oh, yeah, with the,
They would get bigger and, I just remembered that. That was up on the wall.
But then they have the scientists, like through National Geographic, saying this, we have the bones and everything else, and this is the way they looked, and that we evolved.
but, I mean, even in this lesson, I mean, they said that, well, actually, it's the next one, I think, where they say that, I mean, even scientists today think that, we come through different.
Well, what was now I can hear it in my head, that tall man?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Neanderthal?
Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Because they had the bigger foreheads and we don't know if mankind looked the way we do now. I think they were probably taller, stronger.
Well, and they lived a lot longer.
Yeah, we must look
Yeah.
very frail and fragile
Sure.
to them.
Right.
You
And
know,
it depended
because,
on the climate too, because certain areas you needed to have more hair on your body to keep you warm.
and the sun,
It's just, it's.
with the mouth, you know, but we really must look very wimpy to Adam and, you know, Adam had to have some guns on him. He had a
I guess.
six-pack. I said that, didn't I?
And
Oh, hi. But the thing is, the way that, to me, that's an evolution, but not the way they're saying ape
Right.
to ape.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you look at the ship down in the harbor, the Navy men, when they stood up, their heads didn't hit that ceiling. If we walk in there now, we have to go like this
Yeah.
Oh, and I saw
because
that.
we're
Well,
taller
well,
than they
even
are.
well, just look. I mean, if you look at like our sons, our daughters, my granddaughter is 5'8".
So's mine.
And
Yeah.
when I was in high school, believe me, yes, there was one girl taller than me, and she might have been easily 5'8", but that was rare. I mean, you didn't, you know, and my son is 6'3".
Yeah.
And there's people, well, I worked with a gentleman who was 6'7". He played basketball for Penn State. He had a full scholarship because of,
But I really think people back then,
I mean,
Because of that.
I think as we have gone along, we've gotten taller. Don't you think?
Yeah,
When you look at the different generations.
when my parents and I were up.
I
in
didn't, my
Mayfield-
family.
Well, you guys are all shrimps.
Boy, I don't know what.
Tony and I aren't.
I've shrunk. with-
Well, so have I.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
My tallest was 5'5.5", and I always wanted to be 5'6".
I was like 5'6" and 3/4. I was hoping
My
for
my
3/4.
daughter's biggest goal was to be taller than me. Well, now she is, and I told her the only reason she is because I lost an inch and a half.
Well, my parents and I were up in Massachusetts, and we went to see the Mayflower. And they admitted that they had to make the Mayflower 2 larger because the people were so much shorter. I think the average was like 5 foot. And it was interesting because they would show the difference, and they had, you know, dummies or whatever
Yeah.
on the ship to show how small they were.
Yeah.
But to have any of the people work on there or take it out or anything else, they had to make it a little bit bigger by a couple feet.
I mean, my grandmother was not even 5 foot.
Oh, mine was, she was 5'8".
Now my other grandmother, my mom's mom was less than 5 foot. Now my other grandmother, she was easily 5'8" or 5'9". In fact, and my grandfather, her husband, was only like this big, and they stand there. Have you ever seen the picture? You know, the husband and wife with the yeah. Well, that was that were my dad's parents, and I mean, both my grandmothers were very German. I mean, the way they thought, everything. But it was so funny. I mean, I loved my grandfather. He was the only grandfather I ever got to know because my mom's dad died when she was only young. She was only like 9 or 10 when he died. But my other grandfather, I mean, he was special. He was a really neat guy. He was a pig farmer. We go in the fall. We always would have to go out because Grandpa was butchering. And of course, we got to take home all these goodies from the butchering. But, you know, as a kid, it was fun because all I did was run around and, you know, and have to take something into the kitchen to Grandma or something like that. But it was fun. Anyway, 7.
Still say these are tough. You know,
Oh, well, yeah. If Shem was, in fact, not the firstborn, then he had no natural right to expect such a blessing. What does this demonstrate about the men and women God uses?
I said, God doesn't always use the same game plan
Mm-hmm.
and people to fulfill his promise, and he doesn't. I mean,
No.
look at Joseph. I mean,
Yep.
just,
And I put God picks humans that will follow his rules and help carry on God's plans.
Yeah, well, yeah. He uses who is best for the job,
Yes.
regardless of what Hebrew laws, dictate. Well, and who was another example?
when, it had to do with, I guess when we were going into the promised land, and it ended up, it was the prostitute that was saved
Mm-hmm.
because she was willing to
Hide.
hide, and, she believed in God, even though she was a lady of the evening. She believed in God, and she was part of the line from King David and stuff and all that. So,
I wrote something like that, where I wrote, God chose a man who will follow God's commands. He may not follow his will perfectly, because he's not a perfect person.
Right. Yeah. Well, another thing I said is that God thinks outside of the box.
Yeah.
he does.
He doesn't always do what we think, oh, this is what he's going to do. No. Question 8. Why did God select Shem as a forebearer of Christ? Why not Japheth or Ham?
I wrote because Shem respected his father when he was in the tent.
Mm-hmm. Well, and apparently, if you look at the prophecy, it says, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, meaning that was one of the, it's another prophecy.
Yeah.
It's a prophecy for Jesus Christ. He's not talking, when he says, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, he's talking about Jesus. And so Shem probably maybe had a stronger relationship with God, even though Japheth went in with him the same way, backwards and all of that. But apparently, you have to,
The relationships were different.
yeah. So, yep. Okay, let's get into, do you have to go?
No, that was a reminder that I have a dentist appointment at 2 o'clock today.
Oh, bless your heart. Okay, let's go over to chapter 11. The question is, how has modern science or technology affected your life in good ways and then in bad ways? Okay, what are some of the answers you guys have?
All right.
Go ahead.
I put some of the technology is becoming very complicated to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And I put people, like who send me emails, often expect a reply immediately.
Yeah.
And that's not always working in the schedule.
No.
Some of the technologies become very expensive. It's
yeah.
good technology, but it's going to cost.
Like the internet.
Right,
Well, and also cell phones.
Yeah, I know.
right. The biggest problem is all the spam and the people causing
Yeah.
problems by getting info.
Yeah, it's
And
like-
they take a lot of
Too much
info
of our
from people
info.
who have died. They get into their computers, they take everything out of their computers, and then they start scamming all the people that these people who have passed
So what
away.
I had 100 spams this morning.
No way. Oh my gosh.
I know, but did you know my prostate's as big as a lemon?
You got one of those too? So did I,
Yeah.
about my prostate.
Was that an email?
Yes.
Oh, because I haven't checked my emails today.
I just trash them. As soon as I see, I
Yes,
just,
yes,
had
but
tried.
some of the.
Oh, yeah, I
And
will.
I won't even open them up anymore.
No, I don't even open them up.
Not
No,
into how I was.
I
I
know.
was hacked for what, $1,500 I got stuff paid.
The bottom line is I am so thankful for finding out how to silence any call that comes in that's not in my contact list. You would not believe, I've been getting them from all over.
Oh, yeah.
All over. And it used to drive me nuts. Every time I turned around, the phone was ringing. And one day I was on the internet and it said, get rid of those unwanted calls. And it was so simple. Don't ask me how I did it because I don't remember, but I did it and it's been a lifesaver.
Well, mine got so complicated that I finally had the computer guy come over with all this, and he was looking and he said, okay. He says, I'm gonna move this over to spam. Do I have your permission to open this one? Because you haven't opened them. He says, I wanna see where it came from. So he did it and he tracked it and it came from France.
Yeah, some of them
When
come from
I
India, they
was
come up from all
Well,
over.
this one they
Hacker.
picked came from France.
Yeah, they-
Ransom I had because they charged that $1,500 on my Bank America card, Visa card, but it came off my email. And I didn't do it, but mine came from Mexico.
Mexico.
But I still had to pay it.
You still had to pay it.
Because it came off of my email, and that's when they went into my bank account from Visa to my Hartford Bank. Oh, I had a real mess. I just had to
Yeah,
change
well, I
my
had a
whole world.
mess. But what they did, when they knew it was a mess, I said, I think something's wrong. Rosedale Bank shut it all down at 9 minutes after 4, and at 18 or 19 minutes after 4, they tried to withdraw everything.
Oh, no. Wow. Well, they had so much information on my daughter, it was scary. I thought,
Yes.
wow, and then they froze my screen.
This is why I think some of the stuff that people are posting on
Facebook?
Facebook, they're taking and getting out, and they know about this kid who won this and this kid who did this, and they know so much stuff that.
I get so upset with my daughter and her and Facebook.
I get upset with mine.
I told her, I said, you are very intelligent, and I don't understand why you're even using Facebook. I said, for all I can't tell you how many times, 4 times my computer has been locked. I've been working on it, and suddenly it's locked. Well, I got really upset the first time it happened, I had a guy come out and check my computer. Well, my computer itself was okay. They did, however, change my email so that my email was going somewhere else. So he fixed that. And he told me the best thing for you to do is not to open anything that you know who it's from.
Yeah, I don't.
And I don't. I go through and delete everything. And generally, I get close to 50 emails every day. And I might read 2 of them. The rest and even though I know some are coming from Kohl's, some are coming from,
See,
places.
I won't give my email out anymore.
And
to those
I
people.
just,
I wouldn't even give it to the doctor's office. I have a phone, let them call me.
and I've had the same.
Right now, the biggest one that is coming is the one, and I did get one, is to tell them that they're shutting down your Social Security, that there's negative stuff, and you will not be getting any more payments.
Yeah.
They never notify you except by mail.
Oh, I know. Well, no financial institution will send you an email or a text message telling you that something's wrong with your account or whatever. That's never going to happen. So if you see anything that says, we're going to shut down your credit card from whatever bank, even though it is the bank you use, most of the time it's not even a bank you use, but, if it is, just delete it. Don't even open it, just delete it and forget it, because it's,
Except
Well, I found
what they
that
did
the-
on mine was,
the
they
Bank of
had it.
America was
I
the
was
one that
ready
was
to
hacked,
delete
and
it,
it
and
transferred
they
right to
froze
me.
everything.
oh, well, I called the sheriff after the third one. I called the sheriff's department and I said, look, I know this is a scam artist and everything. I said, but how can I stop it? I just want to stop it. And because you're just working on your computer, and next thing you know, you can't do anything, and this big screen comes up and call 800, this 800 number and all this
sometimes
garbage.
it's blue.
Well, she told me, she said, just turn your computer off. She said, you don't have to leave it off for an hour or anything. Just leave it off for about 5 minutes, turn it back on, and the screen will go away.
I was told to go downstairs and, what's that thing, that little tower?
Yeah, I know, it's a tower.
Is that what and
It's the box.
reset it.
Now, you can do that too, but
But turn your computer off and then reset it.
Except
and then-
mine wouldn't go off. That was the problem.
Oh,
They
no.
froze it so you couldn't turn it off.
yeah, that's not happened. Well, then it did happen a fourth time, and I just turned it off. When it happened, I just turned the stupid thing off, went and ate lunch or something, and then came back and turned it back on, and the screen went away. Or, no, the last time it actually stayed there, but I noticed if I went up on top, if I clicked to shut it down, you can shut it down. It's up there, up in the bar. And I just hit the X, and and everything went away. Everything went away.
Yes, it didn't go away.
Yeah, it's a mess. I mean, and can you think, I mean, no wonder so many older people out there don't have computers and that anymore, because it's terrible what you have to go through. And the same thing,
Well,
my TV, twice. They put this screen up on my TV and said that I needed to call this 800 number because my bill hadn't been paid. I turned the TV off, turned my box off, waited, turned it all back on, and it was gone. Now they're even, how do they do that? It's cable. So, it's coming through cable somehow.
yeah.
It's just so
Can
frustrating.
I say something positive about not the internet, about technology? Back in the 40s and 50s, nobody knew about celiac and about, eating wheat or any kind of gluten would cause you problems. From day one, I had problems. I had rickets because of malnutrition. I used to eat my food, and then my mother would get my dessert, and I was like 2 or 3 years old, I would throw up my food. And that was due to the celiac, because it's only been the last 15 years I knew that I had the celiac. And it was not a prominent thing all these years. Oh, plus infertility, it causes infertility. It's just one, and I have irritable bowel, I mean, you name it, and all the digestive problems. And once I got the gluten out, things changed.
Wow.
Yeah,
And I have been miserable for years
Yeah.
because you go from one end of the spectrum in your gastric to the other end, and it's back and forth. And, I dreaded going out to eat.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
positive, that you were able to
Right,
look all that
that-
up and get
fine,
that.
my
There's some
doctor,
positive things, but
I'm just saying, that's the positive thing for me.
Well, I said medical advancements
Yeah. I was gonna
because
say because
not always is it for everyone who needs it or too expensive. There's all kinds of okay. I have a virus in my left eye. It's dormant most of the time. I think in the 40 years that I knew I had it, it's only acted up 4 times. And the last time was in 2020, in January. I know I can tell before it gets too bad. I call my ophthalmologist and I say, it's back. That's all I need to say, and they make an appointment that day for me. Because it makes my eye very light sensitive, which they are anyway, and that eye especially. That's why I wear sunglasses all the time. So when I started with it, all those many years ago, I had these drops that I had to put in. I had to put in like so many times a day, and then again at night was a thicker one that I had to put in and then keep my eye closed. To today, if I had, well, the last time I had it, one pill.
Well, you know,
That's-
I was thinking technology with the DNA to solve murders.
Yes.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah. Okay, well, we've got to get going. This has been good.
Now to the tower.
Now to the tower. I'm going to read the whole 8 verses all together, and then we'll talk about them. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. Remember, that's Mesopotamia. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us," the us here is the Trinity,
Right.
"go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language. So if we look at it, you know, they had it really good because they only had one language. So everybody could communicate, you know, but they weren't happy with that, you know, and of course, in your note, under 11:1, it said whole earth, and they feel it refers to the Middle East. Who knows? Because we think this is just right after they started, you know, they got all the kids and all of that and started having enough people that it was really like the Middle East.
Yeah, they weren't aware of what was,
No.
yeah.
So, but the phrase emphasizes with its repetition that all human beings spoke the same language and had the same vocabulary. Well, think of us, you know, here in America. We speak, well, not all of us do, but most of us speak English, right? And so we understand each other. But have you ever been in the South?
Oh,
Oh, listen,
Well,
I traveled.
They're speaking English.
yeah.
I've traveled across the country since 1955. Quite a
Oh,
few times
I have
in a
too.
car. Yeah, and even the words are different. For ice cream, they call it snow cones. So, you know, they
Coke
have
is
different.
pop.
Yeah.
It-
Well, that's it.
And the thick accent.
Well, the accent and, well, even my husband used to laugh at me because,
I was made fun of when I came up here to Baltimore.
well,
Oh, and the Baltimore accent sounds like a Cockney something or other that,
yeah.
put the dishes in the zinc.
Well, I said, yeah,
They sound
the-
illiterate. I'm sorry. Years ago in the 40s and 50s in Baltimore, I could not believe the way they talked. It just,
But that was their you
And my
know.
mother referred to the kitchen as outside. Go outside. And I used to get but the winters were so cold, they had that metal boxes, and milk, beer, and Coke was always kept on the back porch. So go outside.
Well, being,
They kept milk on,
And it was that cold, and that milk was in a glass bottle.
Yeah.
But the thing was, when the milkman came, they had those metal boxes.
Yeah.
And they had a lid on them.
yeah, we had a milkman,
And
when the
that
kids
was-
were little.
So my mother would always say, well, go outside.
yeah.
Confused me, but
Okay, so so now anyway, they're all talking to each other, right? And they're saying, "Come, let's make bricks." This is the first instance of where they're going against God.
right, exactly. They were making themselves their own God.
That's right. And so here they are. They're baking their bricks. Now, as the writer, he explains that they were living in an area that didn't have the other supplies.
Didn't have enough stone.
Yeah, so they made their own bricks.
But
Yeah.
that showed initiative that they tried to do something different.
Yeah, but it had to be up to the heavens. You know?
I'm not talking about the reason that they
Yeah.
were building.
But, so, yeah, it says, they said to one another, because there's no language barrier, right? They all understand each other. And that was, as the book says, this is the first subtle hint that men were turning to themselves rather than to God. And so now that, they're going down the wrong path. So they made their own bricks, and he said, let us build ourselves. Here's another problem. The focus is on whom?
Themselves.
Right, and
They
not
did
God.
include God,
Right.
their creator.
So as the very last part, it says the people were revealing the true motivation of their building schemes. So they built a tower, and I'm trying to. I should have looked this word up under the word tower. It says this may have been a ziggurat, a large structure composed of concentric squares rising
Right.
to a great height.
For 300 feet.
Such structures were fairly common in Babylonian region and were generally used as, guess what?
Temples.
Temples for pagan gods.
Right.
Well, doesn't that make sense? I mean, isn't that what they're doing? Their tower was their pagan god. I mean, they were, taking it up to the heavens. And
I
so,
was wondering if in Egypt, the sphinxes, they keep wondering what those triangle things are, those three sides. And I thought, well, why wouldn't that be the same thing? If
I don't know.
the Bible was subscribing to 300 feet, and then, where the body of the sphinx and then the
Yeah.
thing. Because the Pharaoh built as a monument to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And these people are building it as a monument to their selves.
yeah. Well, and that's, yeah. So, I mean, they didn't obviously know too much about God because suddenly he's there.
I mean, why, everything's passed down, they had to know God existed.
Well, they know he exists. They know he exists, but they weren't going to do what he wanted them to do, which was to spread and multiply. So they became,
Central.
yeah. So God comes down to see what they're doing. Well, he knows what they're doing, but he's coming down, check it out, right?
I read
So
that could have been, and I was wondering this, that, like when you said to us the Trinity, that possibly that Jesus came down and looked. Could he had showed up? Because it says, came down, he looked, and then he left.
Okay, I'm going to give you something to think about.
Well, that's why I was confused about that.
When did Jesus do you think Jesus was a body
He was,
at creation? We know Jesus was there at
he
creation.
was no, I think he was spirit.
Yes. Yeah. Because now he's not.
Right.
He has a body now. Because he came to earth, he was part God and part man. But back then, he was with God. Yeah, he probably, God. And when you think of God, he's the Trinity.
Right.
So yeah, they all three were there, right?
Yeah, 'cause see, that word
That's what
it drew me, like, oh, so they came down and they looked
yep.
and they went back up.
But they looked and they weren't happy with what they saw.
Yeah.
So what did they do? I loved what he did. I thought it was great. I love the story of the Tower of Babel because of how it ends up. So God comes down. Now, back then, we know through time, God has come down many times. Think of it, Abraham.
And
Moses.
Was a cloud.
Yeah, in the fire.
Bush.
Yeah. So, God came down. So this isn't unusual, but this is the first time we see it here in our scripture right now. And he comes down and he's checking it out. So I like what he says. He said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. That was his reaction.
Where are you reading?
I'm reading out of the Bible.
The Bible, what was that verse? Yeah, 5, started at 5 and then, yeah.
Yeah, so he figures out, okay, it's too easy for them. They can all speak to each other and understand each other, so I'm going to fix them. I'm going to have them speak different languages. So now they don't have a choice. Now they have to gather with the people that speak the same language.
Well, the other thing is that they kept emphasizing is the fact that they were not he had said, I want to be fruitful, multiply, and scatter over all the earth. They were staying in one place.
That's right.
They didn't want to leave, and they were...
Well, they were afraid.
Yeah.
Bottom line was they were afraid. So God scattered them. He made it hard for them. And man's worst fears were realized. It led to man's dominion over the entire planet. Although men may refuse to obey, now I'm reading out of the book, 8. Although men refuse to obey God, they will ultimately be forced into compliance. God's will shall be done, whether man wills it or not. And if we look at Romans, it says, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. So that Jesus Christ is the Lord. So they had to overcome the fact that they couldn't all talk to each other now until they learned each other's language, which we still don't. I can't go over to France and understand what they're saying. Now, I went to Guatemala and could understand. Couldn't necessarily speak with them, but I could understand what they were saying because guess what? I had Latin.
No, yeah.
Which is very close to Spanish. And so I could understand the little kids when they were talking to me. And I'm thinking, boy, I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody down there. But when I got down there, it was amazing to me because of my Latin, even though it was many years ago, but Latin is the basics for what they call the Romance
I
languages.
always thought it was amazing that, let's say, if people come here to become citizens, they have to learn English. And now they know 2 languages.
Yeah, and we know
I don't
one.
speak the English properly, enough to.
Well, and
They got the ability to. And see, I asked before, if you speak 2 languages, your home language, what are you thinking? Do you think in your home language? Or as if your home language is German?
well, that probably depends on the individual.
And I was wondering, what did I have to think that, what are they thinking of? Are they thinking
I would think that they
English or-
probably, in the very beginning at least anyway, don't you think that they probably think in Spanish or whatever language it is?
Yeah, say
You know,
their home, the one they're most familiar with. I thought I couldn't do that. If you want to go to Australia and you want to buy a weed whacker,
no, I don't want to go to Australia.
well, you don't ask for a weed whacker in Australia. It's called a whippersnapper.
Okay. We got to go because it's 12:30 and we still have questions to do. Okay, question one. Question 1. What exactly was mankind doing in this passage that was displeasing to God? What was the problem?
Well, I wrote the tower was a symbol of pride. And they had their own personal monuments to their personal greatness and not to honor God.
Anybody else?
Well, they were building a tower to reach heaven. And they were, building it to glorify themselves, not God.
Yeah, making themselves.
Yeah, like
Is that the main reason that God was upset with them?
Well,
Oh,
the
no,
main
he was
reason was
upset.
that he wanted to be in control, and he was in control, but the people didn't want to follow any of his rules.
They were
And what was the
scattered.
biggest rule? What did he tell them to do?
Go out and multiply and scatter.
Right, and they didn't do that. That's the main, that's what's displeasing to God. I mean, certainly them building, the tower was also a problem, but why were they doing these things? Why?
Well, they didn't want to.
Why didn't they move from the area, and why did they build the tower?
All right, for building the tower, when they had the one language, I wrote down that was the first time they had an organized rebellion against God's commandment to spread around the earth.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and they didn't do what God wanted them to do because what?
They
I
wanted
wrote
to be
down
in
fear.
control. They wanted to do what they wanted to do.
Well, part of that, but why? But why did they? I think because they wanted to be in control. I think that's an excuse.
Okay, I wrote down the descendants of Noah lacked their faith that God would provide for them. And they just didn't have that faith that Noah had. So they had fear, so they
Yeah, they were afraid. That's the big deal.
But
Okay,
if
they
their
were afraid
faith
of
was
leaving.
stronger in what God had told them, they would not have had the fear.
Okay. Question 2, why did God want people to spread out and populate the earth?
I just wrote because he created a beautiful earth for all his creation to enjoy.
Well, he wanted it all populated, bottom line. I mean, he didn't, all the known earth at that time. Because they didn't know the whole earth at that point. Okay, question 3, why do you think the descendants of Noah failed to follow this command? Remember, the command is to multiply and scatter.
Right, and it was a command. He told them that they were to do that. And
Right.
They didn't want to obey. Bottom line again, didn't want to obey.
Well,
Well, yeah, but they felt safer if they stayed together.
yeah, and the fact that they could all understand each other
Yeah.
and talk to each other, that made it harder for them to leave each other. Yeah, they felt safer there, and they were united as one people, right? So they learned how to bake bricks and build a tower. Okay, I didn't do question 4. Let's look at 5. Question 5 on page 114. I only did 5 and 8 here. In what ways are modern societies repeating the mistakes of the people at Babel?
Not acknowledging God is in control.
Okay, that's one thing.
They're trying to build governments that control behavior of the people. I'm thinking of China and Russia. Groups that advocate rules that ignore God's plan for salvation, think they can do things their way and glorify themselves. They want to replace God.
Okay,
Yeah, that-
that's good. I went on a different stream, but it kind of goes along with what you say. I said that people today make idols out of,
yeah. they're-
and that's what the tower was. It was their idol.
Right.
But today we don't necessarily build something to make it an idol, but people today make idols out of power, the house, job, money. When I was in seminary, we were talking about this, and part of our reading was this guy who, his lawn, he made an idol out of his lawn. He spent his lawn, the grass.
The grass.
Yeah.
He spent hours and hours working on this lawn. It had to be perfect. I mean, and I think, are you kidding me? But it's true. I mean, if you see some places, you wonder, how much time do they spend doing all of this?
I'm going to tell you a lot of time. I don't idolize my lawn, but I do really. I'm not going to, if God gave me that house and that lawn to take care of, I'm going to do everything I can to keep it up. and not
But
do-
taking care of it is different than
Idolizing.
yeah, than making
I
it
just put
into
fertilizer
something.
down last night, 'cause,
But
you know,
okay.
I get out my
But
stuff.
I'll never forget that was in our textbook about this guy with his lawn. I'm like, oh my word,
All right, don't let the doggy lift his leg on the tree. I have people that go out and put signs in their front yard.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. I wish more people would put them up around my neighborhood. We literally, between the houses, the townhouses that are around, that kind of not surround us, but they're across the street and then next to us, we get together with their association and ours to have a something sprayed on the grass and all that out along to keep the fleas down. I couldn't walk in the morning and wear, even without, when I come back, I could have as many as 10 flea bites. And so they finally got together, because most of the dogs being walked aren't from our area, our development. We only have 60 units in our, it's all the townhouses walking their big German Shepherds and, beautiful dogs, but come on. And then see, because it's supposed to be, what's the word I want? It's nobody's grass.
It's common there.
It's common grass. They don't clean it up. So, then you'll have all this feces out there, and it was a mess. I mean, but then finally we said, hey, look, we can't do this anymore. I mean, people were complaining so much, and so finally they worked a deal that They would pay to have their area sprayed, and we would pay to have ours. And now you can go out there and walk and not worry about it because they spray every spring.
I used to
a
put
mess.
fertilizer down in my backyard. It took care of all of that.
It was
I
bad.
didn't spray my dog, I took care of
I would wear long pants year round because flea bites are not fun. You
No,
know,
they aren't.
no. So question 8, how have you seen God's grace in your own life?
Where do I begin?
Well, I know.
But
What?
I said, where do I begin?
That's true, but that's a good question, I think, for us to answer, even if it's just for ourselves.
Mine
But
started at the beginning of my life, and that was when my mother passed away and my father had been killed in the war, that God was instrumental in having a family adopt me. And it was due to a nurse at the hospital who had a sister who was a friend of my parents.
wow,
And
cool.
That, and they went in, they met my mother, and I was 5 years old, and she said she wanted to make sure that I was with a Christian family.
That's great.